All right, so for the first question, I chose um, the degrees of reality for Descartes um, and the value of them. Right away, I think the value of them is it creates a necessity for God, because what happened for Descartes is Descartes was in between, or just after he had finished the Cogito. So he had just created this dichotomy between the mind and the body, mind being substance, body being a mode. And this is really significant for his whole ontological or possibly cosmological argument, because he had to find something fundamental. I think this is the common thread through Leibniz and Spinoza, that they have to start with something fundamental. Like um, Descartes claims that God's the one true substance. Spinoza claims that God is the only substance. And this is so important into Descartes' degrees of reality. So what it is Descartes is having a problem. He can't understand why he has this concept of God, but yet can't conceive it. So he has to, like, where did this come from? He ends up concluding that God exists through this whole series of events, which it's an all right argument. But what formal reality formal reality is the ideas that are the mode of the mind. So our ideas are the mode of the mind, and so formal reality becomes the idea, and then objective reality in relation to it is how real that idea is. So there's this scale. You have God as the ultimate true one, the true substance, not one substance, Spinoza. This true substance, and that's most complete objective in reality, most objective reality. And then everything below that, finite or created substances, modes, are less than that. So the value in this, I think, for a pastor would be, look, it's just more enunciating that we aren't perfect, and we're striving to follow something that's foundational. So I think Descartes realizes that we need a foundation. We need something to build off of, and he does that through his mind to build everything else around him, starting with God. But for Spinoza, on the other hand, while his diagram is actually kind of similar with his attributes, modes, and substances, his focus is still on God. Well, he starts with God immediately, where Descartes kind of backdoors his way into starting with God. Spinoza's model of substances, it's really similar. But what it has to do is what it says is, Spinoza goes about this big diversion, where Descartes said that we are created substances. Spinoza pushes back on that. He doesn't like that. He says, okay, well, look, if the definition of substance is to be individual, fundamental, foundational being or entity or something, then we can't be created, because if we're created, then somehow we're less than the creator, or we're dependent on the creator, which makes us not fully individual. So he defines humans as modes, and we become modes that reflect God, because what is created must reflect the creator. It can't have anything outside the creator, but it is not fully the creator, which is why he thinks we're modes. And each mode expresses differently God. And so Spinoza just takes this completely different route than Descartes. And I find that really, really interesting, how they just end up at two different conclusions. But since substances must be fully individual, he uses God as an example. God is completely individual, self-existence. So here's this whole fundamental, we need this backdrop. We need this foundational thing to explain everything else. So his diagram starts with God at the top, the infinite, perfect being, and then you fall from that, and then his attributes, thought, and extension. And attributes are like the qualities of whatever it possesses. So for God, he has infinite attributes because he must have everything. He must contain everything. So he has infinite attributes. He must have everything that can be found within our existence. And then he has thought and extension. Those are the only two known to them. But we reflect that, but on a finite level. And so this all works together. This all fits together because he goes into his panpsychism. I'm not going to get into that, but I think that's kind of why they work together. So he's really looking for harmony, like the self-determination, the conatus that Spinoza had. Like, he's all looking for this harmony. If we're modes of God, we should all be working together to be this one big gigantic organism. And so his ethics is derived from that. But I think that's how it all works together. Now, through the thought and through extension, we do this, but we're always trying to get better. We're always trying to be more perfect, like God, even though we can never be God. But that's our goal. That's our job. Now, going on to the third and final question, I did Leibniz's problem of necessitism, and this is definitely a different path. So it's kind of disconjoint, but I'm going to outline it like this. So first, Leibniz says that monads are complete. So that, I think that's base ground knowledge that we need to know to understand the problem and his response, and then how good I think it is. And then, so we're going to say some things are necessary truths, like a triangle. A triangle must be a triangle in every reality that it's in. It can't not be a triangle. And then each world's choices necessarily hold to those choices. What I mean by that is because a monad is complete, everything within that world that monad chooses is necessarily true by that. But each world could have chosen another logically possible. This is the contingency truth. So Spinoza uses the antelope as the antelope with 3 legs as his example, saying, look, it could have 4 legs, but in this world it has 3 legs based on what happened in the past, in the choices it made and choices imposed on it. But I think what's interesting, kind of reading into this a little bit, but well, definitely each of those worlds exist, because God knows all the logically possible and all the possible worlds and chooses the best of all possible worlds for Leibniz. And if each of those worlds exists, then God chooses the best one. So for whatever reason, that world's better. But contingency seems to be the reality that there are other probable logical possibilities that could be made, but within a specific world, the best one, for example, a decision based on a monad's completeness leading to whatever a monad does freely, that means it must have necessarily acted. Leibniz, to me, seems to be striving for compatibilism. For example, each Caesar could have crossed the Rubicon, and that's where the contingent choices flow from, that he could have chose, and some did and some didn't, but each one that chose, since it's complete, the monad's complete, each one necessarily chose that. So I think compatibilism, the argument for compatibilism for Leibniz is his best option, because while he's arguing that monads are complete, it seems to fit, because each monad's freely choosing, but it's like it's already determined to be that way based on their prior choices. And that's why Leibniz argues that there's free will. That's why he says that's there's free will. But personally, I don't like compatibilism, but I do think it fits in his framework, and I can see how he can make that jump, saying, okay, if there's all these possible worlds that God can look at, and he can see every single different choice that each Caesar makes, like, he can judge it then, and he can say, well, this is the best possible because this happens and how it flows. Yeah, I don't like compatibilism, but I think, just to recap, I think it's really important to understand how important it was that God is a necessary. They all were looking for a transcendental being, and God meets that often in each one, and for each of these rationalists, whether it be a monad, whether it be God is all, we are all God. I'm not too sure, but yeah.